good morning, or good evening, whatever may be suiting you during your day. My name is Meryl, and I'll be guiding you through your Savasana this morning or evening. So I invite you to come to lying on your back. Traditional Savasana, corpse pose, requests that you lie on your back with the legs spread as far apart as suits you, as well as the arms at the sides, palms facing up. Okay. And as you come to lying on your back, start to feel the back body connect to the earth or your mat. Okay. And as you start to close your eyes, I'm going to transition to an upright posture. So many options with Shavasana, as I tell my students in a traditional yoga class in the studio, that there's many variations for Shavasana. Okay? So sometimes if your lower back starts to feel as if it's getting really tense or achy, you're welcome to bring a bolster underneath your knees. Or if you don't have a bolster and you have your blocks, you can place a block underneath each knee. Or as an option, you can bend your knees up and plant your feet the width of your mat or whatever feels comfortable for you and bring the knees in together. Many options as well with your arms at the sides. You can bring one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly, or stack the hands over the heart. Okay. And sometimes many people find their own variation of Shavasana. And a lot of times I find students lying on their side because that is more comfortable for them in the fetal position, perhaps a forearm underneath the down ear. Some people I find that they take their Shavasana on their belly, prone. Right? They stack the hands at the top of their mat and plant their forehead on top of the top hand, or they bring their hands to the sides, palms facing up, and bring one ear to the mat. But for this purpose in Shavasana, I encourage you to take the traditional variation with a slight modification. So therefore, lying on your back, whether you bring blocks or a bolster underneath your knees, or you stack your hands above the heart, or if you just take the true variation of the arms at the sides with the palms facing up and the legs spread. And oftentimes we talk about the femurs being neutral, but for a tree release, go ahead and just roll your toes out to the side. And as you close your eyes and you become comfortable in wherever you are, whether it's just after a long day of work, whether it's after a yoga practice and you want a longer Shavasana, I am here for you to be guided into the mythology of Shavasana. So go ahead and get comfortable, get heavy on your mat, release all tension. And what I mean by that, sometimes even myself, when I'm in Shavasana, I'm clenching my teeth, or the tongue is stuck to the roof of the mouth. Can you find some release through the jaw? Can you feel the shoulders and the shoulder blades truly get heavy and connected to the earth? Right? Notice if you're holding some tension into the abdomen, can you find some release through the core? As well as, are you clenching into the quads, or you feel that you're pointing your toes? Can you just simply let go? And just allow yourself to arrive into a truly heavy Shavasana, also known as corpse pose. And so as you're here, nice and heavy on your mat, you'll slowly start to ease in a little bit of some text with what Shavasana in yogic mythology means. So here in our Western culture, oftentimes we equilibrate or equivalate corpse pose to death, and with more of a negative view of death, right? The end of life and just truly the end, right? But in yogic mythology, death is more of a welcome. And a lot of times, yoga is practiced to achieve enlightenment so that when it comes to death, we are truly let go. Okay? And so, as a story, a mythological story behind Savasana, there was once a king named, pardon me, with the pronunciation of some of the names, Parishkit Maharaj, a king that was very well respected. And one day he was riding through the woods and became extremely thirsty. And as he was riding through the woods, he happened to come across a sage named Shamika Rishi. And he asked him for some water because he was thirsty. But Shamika Rishi was in deep meditation. And the king mistook this as ignoring him and not honoring him. And so what the king did was he found a dead snake and was lying on the ground and wrapped it around the meditating sage. And at this point, the meditating sage, remember again, his name is Shamiki Rishi, his son found what the king was doing to his father and cursed the king, announcing that he would die from a snake bite in 7 days. And upon hearing this, the meditating sage Shamika Rishi became aware, knowing that his son had just cursed the king and rebuked him. But as curses are, cannot be undone. And so at this point, the king went home, realized that in 7 days he would be leaving the world. And so he gave up his throne and went out into the bank in the Ganges where a number of sages were meditating. He happened upon them and requested that he be taught the science of yoga. And so the sages were willing to work with the king, and upon them was a 16-year-old sage named Sukadeva. And he is the son of Vyasa. And Sukadeva was a very enlightened sage, even at the age of 16. He was completely self-realized. And from here, Sukadeva, just a 16-year-old, worked with the king and instructed him on the science of the soul for the next 7 days. And the king, completely absorbed in his teachings, didn't even want to have any food or water. He was in a state of wanting to learn as much as he can for the remainder of the 7 days of his life. And so after 7 days, the king achieved self-realization and welcomed his physical death. He had an open heart and an open mind. Allowing yourself to absorb the story of the king and what he has done to prepare himself for physical death. A lot of times we spend our lives just so absorbed in the busyness of what it is, whether you have kids or you work full time, and the exhaustion that occurs at the end of the day. Right? Can sometimes you take a step back to truly learn and absorb what may be more important, whether that's your personal faith, whether it's some goals you have set for yourself spiritually or emotionally, mentally, rather than always being so physically involved. You learning about the king and what he has done in order to prepare himself, knowing that he only had 7 days, whereas for us in humanity, we really don't know when death will occur. So I invite you to take the remaining few minutes left here in being in Savasana, whether you just simply let go completely physically and mentally and not really think anything about the mythological story that was just read or told to you, but just to get heavy and release all tension. Thank you for joining me for this extended rest period in Savasana, and perhaps even learning what the pose has meant in yogic mythology. I look forward to seeing you again. Namaste.